Welcome to Rich Man's Theory, exposing mainstream lies in history, education, media, and pop culture. Now, here is your host, Dr. Susan, PhD.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Susan. I'm so happy to be back. I was on a long hiatus. I got a new job doing a whole bunch of cool stuff at the medical school at the university and just could not keep up with this very important podcast that I'm doing. So thank you for sticking with me. Today, we're going to be talking about the artificial category of race. So in today's society, you can observe pretty well that things are upside down, backwards, topsy-turvy, basically the opposite of the way nature was designed. And oftentimes we suppress our nature in order to see how much control we really have over these natural forces, right? Like, can we control nature, or does nature control us? Does nature even exist? Well, from my own epistemology, of course, I believe that there's something in nature, and nature is more powerful than we are, and that the more we try to control nature, the more powerful the force that tries to counteract us and, of course, bring about that balance, right? So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the more you do something against it, the more it's going to do something back at you. So today we're going to talk about how race is racist. So I talked about this in another episode, but I still think that there's a lot to talk about. So the construction of race, as we know it today, was actually invented in the 1700s. And a lot of people think that this might be in support of BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement, but it's actually not. I do not support that political organization. I do not support critical race theory. Do I think that racism exists? Of course, because I'm saying that race itself is racist. So what do I mean by that? Well, stick with me so you can find out. So as I said, race has been created about 200 to 300 years ago. And when I say race, I mean our modern conception of race. Of course, you can go back and find earlier texts that use the word race, but that word race is not going to be about the race that we talk about today. So if you want to talk about modern race as we know it today, for example, the Chinese race, the white race, the black race, brown race, I'm not even sure if that's a thing. Those things did not exist until the 1700s. Now, when you look at the Bible talks about different classes of people or different races of people, but that's a spiritual category. So it would say about the black races or the white races or the dark races and the light races. These are races of creation in terms of spirituality, not in terms of your skin color, not in terms of your ancestry or geography. So again, just to emphasize that the conception of race, as we have it today, our modern contemporary idea of race, was invented in the 1700s. And these are facts here. So at that time, before that time, the discrimination was usually about class. So that would be how much money you have, which family you're from, your namesake, your pedigree, your social status, so on and so forth. That would be the cause for discrimination. Now, when migration and slavery and all of that jazz happened, they had to reformulate their ways of discriminating, because as the community changes, as do the social interactions and the social tools that they have. And so, of course, they would need a new tool. And the most powerful trick of the system is to have people believe that there are essentialized characteristics in other types of human beings that warrant discrimination or that justify discrimination. People have to actually believe that discrimination is okay in order for them to adopt it, because people are intrinsically fair-minded people, or at least good-intentioned people for the most part. So you really do have to convince them that you're not doing anything wrong, there's nothing to feel guilty about, that this discrimination is needed because it's actually a way to protect you and your loved ones. And bonus, you are on the right side, they are on the wrong side. So how do they do that? Well, I mentioned in my earlier videos that they use the us-them dichotomy. And so what they do is they say, we are a group of people, we are good, and there are bad people, they are them. And what they want to do is they want to take what we have. And so in order to protect ourselves, not to offend, but rather to defend ourselves, we have to treat them a certain way. And now that might mean that we need to imprison them, enslave them, kill them, whatever, harass them, pillage their land, steal from them, whatever it might be. So race is the perfect way to create that justification that there are groups who are different and that different treatment is absolutely needed. It's necessary for survival. And this goes into the whole theory of social Darwinism and Darwinian theory in general. So in order to buy into race, you have to buy into the Darwinian theory and vice versa. So in the Darwinian theory, it's survival of the fittest. It's dog eat dog. If I don't, they will. It's a zero-sum game. So that's how race works. It's all about survival of the fittest and which group is going to come out top dog. Now, if you subscribe to that, you subscribe to that, but you don't have to subscribe to that because, again, it's a theory. So everyone can come up with their own theories, but what they cannot come up with is biology. And so if you look at biology, there is no biological markers for race. What we do have is ancestry groups or DNA markers that can pinpoint groups to whom you are related. But beyond that, there are no racial markings. So even if you wanted to look at it in a medical perspective, Black people, it's not a thing. You would have to say, okay, Black people from this community, in this country, in this continent, have certain susceptibilities to certain diseases, but it would never be somebody from Jamaica having the same DNA or racial markers as somebody who is an African American who is not originally or has any ties to Jamaica, or somebody from Jamaica and somebody from I don't know, the Ivory Coast or something like that. So my point is that yes, families have similar DNA. And then if you go and extend yourself to the next circle of family, so your extended family, you're going to have similar DNA. And the community is just an ancestry group because you're all marrying within the same radius. So if you're from a city, then you usually marry somebody from that same city as you. And so then you can see that the pool of genes would be recycled. Now with migration and online dating and people getting married to people all over the world, of course, you're going to be creating new gene pools. And so according to race theory, you would be creating new races. And that's another thing that we need to think about is that across 300 years since, or 250 years since race has been conceptualized as it is now, as Black people are some sort of essentialized being, white people are some sort of essentialized being, and everything's about your phenotype. Your phenotype is dictated by your genotype, and your genotype dictates your phenotype. But what people don't know about that is that your genotype actually contains a whole bunch of markers that don't actually get physically expressed. So you could be in a family with multiple different colored siblings and parents and that kind of stuff, and you wouldn't even look the same, even though you're part of the same family. So are you guys part of a different race? No, of course not. So race is beyond the skin color, even according to their strange theory. But so what I wanted to say is that over time and over places, and especially after political events like 9/11, the number of races change, and the number and the lines of division change. So before 9/11, Arabs were part of the white race after 9/11 immediately. So on September 12th, 9/11, Arabs became a separate race called the Arabs. And I'm going to make a video about that specific case of Arabs and how that doesn't make any sense from a racial point of view too, because I think it's super interesting and enlightening. So is there such thing as ethnicity? Absolutely. Is there something, ancestry groups that you're going to share DNA? Absolutely. Is there something that essentializes you as a certain group with a certain attitude, behavior, markers, abilities, inabilities? Absolutely not. So I just wanted to talk about that because I think there was a little bit of confusion on that. But that is all I wanted to talk about for today. It's a short episode. Usually I like to make mine a little bit longer, but thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.
Join us as we get to the bottom of all the confusion and propaganda and present solutions to counterfeit knowledge.